Hey everybody, thanks for joining me on the Ant Panda channel. Well, the time has come. From the end of the last video, we now dive into one of the most interesting, unique type of developed games, probably of all time, and that's gonna be Lord of the Rings Gollum. Well, I alluded to it, I joked about it, I teased it, and I did it. So here we are. We're going to talk about Lord of the Rings Gollum and see if in 2025 it indeed is still considered the worst game of last year. So, as we dive into the game actually has, we'll start with some of the good things as we kind of go through some of the footage and experiences that I had with the game. The game opens up, just to give you an idea, of the world of Gollum, and this takes place around the time that Gollum was actually captured, taken from the land of Mordor, orcs, and the whole kind of leading system of Sauron as they're looking to try and find the ring itself. It opens up, Gollum's just kind of hanging around and going into his own cave, just trying to avoid things while he's stuck in Mordor, where eventually he gets kind of brought into a set of circumstances that eventually cause him to be basically captured as he slithers away and tries to get out of the land of Mordor. This game has a number of pros, and it does kind of focus in that type of the lore. So if you are interested in kind of what the interpretation, and again, I want to preface this game is an adaptation of what the lore would be for that time during the search of Gollum, which I believe there's going to be a movie coming out for it here in the future. However, for this sake of the game, it takes place during that time. Gandalf comes in and actually talks to Gollum to try and recount his experiences, which ultimately lead to the end where Gandalf learns about what he mentioned to Sauron and Mordor in order to go their way to try to recollect the ring that's been so lost. So the game is interesting because as you're being recounted, you get pulled in. The environment in the game itself is very Mordor and very Lord of the Rings. So if you're a fan of that, then you're going to really much like this game, as the majority of 10 chapters is entirely focused on that. It does allow you the unique mechanic of Gollum versus Smeagol having an internal battle, or really external, as he talks to himself throughout the entire game and trying to convince of himself of what to do depending on who you choose to convince each other. Gollum can convince Smeagol to make certain actions, while Smeagol can convince Gollum of other actions. So depending on which you choose, you could be a good or a bad Gollum or Smeagol. The jumping mechanic in the game, it feels really good. And you definitely get a good insight of the world of Mordor and the horrible things that are treatment for orcs, the Mordor folks, and folks that live there. And you'll notice that the high visibility of graphic characters, usually in the way of villains, is in the game. It's just, in a sense, it's very depressing for Gollum, and it's a very sad tale as he gets boggled and pushed around and taken advantage of at every turn. Now, as that's kind of how far the positivity goes for the game, let's go through the cons. Alright, as you can see, and most notably memed throughout the game, the graphics are dated. It's not the worst, but they're really dated for probably closer to the early 2000s. Crazy part is it just kind of feels like, and we'll get into some specific, the development for this game itself was very rushed though. There was a lot of things that kind of gone into it when it comes to the lack of money, toxic environment. There's a lot of environment bugs and soft locks. As you can see here in this particular example, you'll notice the wheel with all of the bars that you have to jump through in order to get across into other parts of Mordor moves, and it moves in a uncharacteristically, environmentally, and physically, as far as physics go, just not how it should. It's kind of hilarious, but also soft locking terrible, and there's a lot of those type of bugs in this particular game. The story and gameplay is pretty weak. Like, the story of it being in Mordor is the coolest part about it, and playing Gollum is actually not too bad. But it's really just very soft. It doesn't really affect the world of Lord of the Rings. You don't necessarily feel like you're any part of it. It's just kind of a transitional period. You're not going to see any crucial or major characters, just folks that you could kind of tell were derivative and made that weren't really related to it. Mouth of Sauron does make an appearance, but the Candleman is the main kind of villain, and there are some dwarves, well, some elves, and Gandalf will make an appearance, as well as some elves there, but only for a brief cutscene, and you actually won't have any sort of gameplay mechanics or any sort of challenges or anything to work with them on. You're not going to control any of them, you're not going to make any changes. They're just there for a story element on the cutscenes. There's very annoying death bugs. Every time you die, Gollum says the same thing. If you die the first time on certain chapters, he's going to say certain things for the rest of the playthrough until you restart the game and replay it from the beginning. And this goes hand in hand with kind of the rest of everything. Everything is very rushed. There's a lot of things you could tell, and I would even say for how Gollum looks and the environments look, that it looks like they have close to one or two iterations, but they never really got that final iteration of artistic direction that they're looking for. And that's just kind of the sad thing about it, because it could have been a great game. I think that everybody was kind of hyping it up in the beginning and looking forward to. So in the end, I would say, just, of course, being 2025, it's been patched and updated some, but just avoid this game unless you could get it at a massive discount and you do love Lord of the Rings and you want to see kind of an insight of Gollum. I mean, that's one reason and way to basically look at the game itself, but you also can, justify it if you want to see what a big train wreck in the industry looks like. As Lord of the Rings Gollum was a very interesting, I would even say, case study, but it certainly wouldn't classify, I would say, as a good completed work in the Lord of the Rings universe. So that's that. I'm sorry, Gollum. It's not you, it's everything else. So anyway, don't make me do that again. We'll go to some other bigger and better things in the future, and thank you for joining me in this video for Lord of the Rings Gollum review.